Hi, and welcome to the Neoprene Playmat. I'm your host, Matt Piak, and this is Laying It All Out, a segment where I take a hot topic in the board game industry and I get all the details and I just lay it all out there. I try and dive into the nuance and look at both sides of the argument or argue for one side or the other. And today's episode is going to revolve around a recent update by Lucky Duck Games for their Kingdom Rush Kickstarter. I was originally led on to this by Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and he put out a video extremely happy, extremely positive about what Lucky Duck has done here. So let's go through that update really quick, and I'll give you my thoughts. So let's get into it here. All right, so to begin with, Kingdom Rush is set to deliver very soon, probably end of November, that type of thing. And so Lucky Duck Games puts out this update asking for your support. Essentially, do your heroes, yada, yada, yada. There's been a lot of things that have put this game back. The release date with COVID and manufacturing improvements and game development and shipping disruptions. Essentially, there's been difficulties. And so now they're asking the backers for help. So what they've done is they've essentially said, hey, all of our stuff is pretty much at the warehouses for Kingdom Rush, but every pledge also includes this Spider Goddess expansion. And in the Spider Goddess expansion, that's going to be delivered to every backer. Those are not in our warehouses yet, but they need to, they're on their way, right? So they're saying, no later than November 23rd will these games arrive at your doorstep, or at the earliest. I'm sorry, not no later, no earlier than November 23rd, because we're waiting on the Spider Goddess expansion to show up. And so they go on and they talk a little bit here about how essentially there's a cutoff point because of Black Friday, and so they're asking the backers if they're okay with putting the base game of Kingdom Rush into retailers before it's delivered to the backers, mostly because this expansion isn't ready to be sent out yet, and if they have a very small window, and essentially if they don't get this out, they don't get these games to retailers, it's going to be very detrimental to their business. And so they essentially need to put this game out earlier. And so then they go on and they ask, they're saying, well, we're not going to make this business decision. What we're going to do is we're going to ask you as the backer, are you okay with us putting only the base game into the retail stores early? You're still going to get your game and your expansion and everything, but it might be a couple weeks after it goes to retail market. But they're only going to do it if they get enough support from people saying yes. And they go on to say that whichever option has the most votes, they're going to follow it. So if everybody says no, they're going to take a big hit and they're not going to put this base game into stores. If everybody says yes, or at least 51% of people say yes, they're going to go ahead and put the base game into stores. Now, Alex, when he was reviewing this, he was praising them. Good job for reaching out to your backers and seeing what they want and gaining their support, and really genuinely wanting to see that. And when you look at most of the backers, they're all saying yes, yeah, this is fine. Like, go ahead. But there are a couple no's in here as well. There's people that are a little bit upset about this. And this is where I think this was extremely problematic. This isn't, a business should never be run this way. I understand doing things for the consumer and having the consumer's support, but all they said was that this would be detrimental. We have even any of the backers, we don't have any actual number data of how this is going to affect Lucky Duck Games. Is that a few thousand off of their margins, or is that going to derail the company? What is? Yes, they've said that it's significant, but how significant? How does that translate? Um, and I'm not mad at Lucky Duck Games at all for the decision they've made or wanting to. I shouldn't say the decision they made for wanting to put these games on retail, but I don't think the backers should be the ones deciding that for them. As a company, they have all the numbers, they have all the context. They're the ones that should be making a call. And yeah, that would be a really misfortunate update if they say, hey, this is why it's happening. I think the why is important. Please tell us everything that's happening. But you need to look at the numbers. You need to run it in the context rather than waiting for an arbitrary vote to see how you're going to move your business forward. Like, you have to make complex decisions. And if everybody said no and then this ends up ruining Lucky Duck Games, like, that was a terrible business move, right? And people would be mad at you for making the business move. So, like, people are going to be mad at you either way. But that said, you have all the information. You are the publisher. You have the numbers. You know what sort of impact putting this in retail early is going to make for your company. And it's very important given the timeline with Christmas. And yes, you've communicated that to your backers. And yes, you're showing that you care by allowing them to vote. But honestly, this also puts undue pressure on your backers. How many people are putting yes because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do, especially after seeing the other yeses? How many people are actually a no and they feel pressure this way, or they don't want their name tied to the no, right? Like, I can scroll through the comments and pull up everybody that said no. I can say, this guy's a no, this guy's a no, this guy's a no, and here are all the yeses, right? And so you end up creating this almost mob-like pressure to vote in a particular way. So you're not even getting actual feedback. They could have really easily sent out a survey, make something up in SurveyMonkey where you vote on this, right? And I'm not saying they should necessarily do this, but if you're going to ask, why would you do it in a public forum where everybody else is going to know how you as a backer have responded? Of course you're going to get overwhelmingly yes. And yes, maybe that's the move, right? In my mind, this looks like a PR move where it's like, okay, we're going to give them the illusion of choice by making this public, but people will feel so pressured that they're not going to step back and say no. And there might be a few, there's always going to be a few people that stand their ground, but it'll be overwhelmingly yes. It'll look like we've done the right thing as the company by asking, and we're going to get what we want. That's not, in my mind, that's not good business. It seems sketchy. I would much prefer them say, hey, here's the deal. This is super important to keep Lucky Duck Games running. We realize this is, creating problem, or this is problematic that we're releasing this before our Kickstarter backers get the game. We cherish you guys. We love you as backers, but we also need to succeed as a company. And so we've made this decision to move forward. In that respect, there's no pressure on the backer. The backer might be mad. You might lose a couple backers, but overall, you're going to make that up in the revenue you generate from your retail distribution, right? And so, is that a tough decision? Is that hard? Absolutely. But I wouldn't want to be. I'm not backing this project currently, but I wouldn't want to be in this situation personally. I would say yes. Like, I actually have no problem at all with them doing this, but I probably wouldn't even vote. It just, like, I don't want to give them the go ahead. I don't want to say no. Like, I want to avoid this process. I don't think this is a good process for doing things. And I wonder how they're taking that into account too. If nobody comments, or like if, let's say 30% of people comment and 70% of the people that comment are yeses, what about that whole other 70% that haven't commented on your update? Like, do their opinions matter? Did they see this? Do they care about this? Like, there's no surefire way to do this. Just make a decision. This was a terrible idea. If you're running a business, you got to make the hard calls, even if it's going to upset your fan base and things like that. And I really, really wish Lucky Duck Games would have just come out and said, hey, this is what we have to do. We love your support. We love you guys. Don't worry, nobody else is getting these expansions. You're still getting all the Kickstarter stuff. Nobody else is getting that. But for us to survive as a company, we needed to do this. Rather than saying, hey, guess what, guys? You are going to make a business decision that could possibly destroy Lucky Duck Games. It's all on your shoulders. We might take a catastrophic loss, but we don't care because somebody that's completely uninformed made a decision about our business. It just doesn't make sense. If you're running a business, please, 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 just make the tough decisions, make the calls to make your business successful. You might receive some hate and some bad emails and things like that, but that's part of the enterprise. That's part of it. So all in all, this update kind of frustrated me. I know some other people are feeling really happy about it. I wanted to voice my thoughts and get those out there to say this is not a good move. The backers are not the right people to make this decision. Be the publishing company that you are and make the hard calls, make the decisions you need to, and then inform your backers on why. The why is still important. I'm not saying just go release the game to retail. This email works super well if you just say the exact same things, explain it all, and say this is what we had to do. Now you don't have a ton of people that have said no and are still going to receive their game later than a whole bunch of other people. I mean, 49% of the people could say no, and this game would still be released early without them because they're just doing a plurality, a majority vote. And so, yeah, frustrated. But anywho, that's my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Do you like when publishers do this? Are you a fan of publishers that are asking for business advice from the backers, or do you land on my side? Do you think this should have been a business decision? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this content, feel free to hit a like, subscribe even. Putting this stuff out every week. So that's all for today. This has been the Neoprene Playmat, and thanks for watching.